just wait a minute. Okay, thank you. So it's 6:30, April the 29th, 2021. I'd like to call to order this meeting for the Development Review Board. The first item is roll call. Would staff like to call the roll, please? Lawrence, can you call the roll, please? Yes.
I thought Brittany was going to be here anyway.
I can't hear you.
Okay,
That's going to be good.
Okay, Mr. Chair, did you announce the meeting and everything?
Yes, I did.
Okay, sorry, my apologies.
That's right.
Miss Jamie Bell?
Present.
Mr. Rick Keane?
Present.
Mr. Brent Hartman?
Present.
Miss Rebecca Herring?
Present.
Deborah Neal Marisi?
Present.
Dr. Vandermeer?
Present.
Chair Thompson?
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, let's assume that the agenda is approved. Oh, we need to vote on that, don't we?
Yes. May I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Second.
Mr. Chair, the agenda does not have, I don't think it has discussion of board items, so you want to amend it to add that?
Yes, I'd like to amend my motion that the agenda we're using tonight is one that's been modified this afternoon, that includes the discussion items. If you don't have it, we want to make sure to read those out.
Board discussion, yes.
So a second?
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chair, who seconded the motion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, did Lawrence go over with everyone how the microphones work? I happen to be in another committee meeting in here, and you have to press the button on the bar in front of you.
If the red light is on, your microphone's on.
Yeah, so I think, Mr. Chair, yours stays on through the whole meeting, but I think everyone else has to press their button to be heard on the web meeting.
Okay, yeah, well, just check your button, check your light, and if the red light is on, your microphone is on. And you may have to press the button.
And
Thank
staff
you.
may automatically turn it off if there's feedback. So they, at my last meeting, staff asked that we only turn it on when speaking and then turn it back off.
Okay, good advice. Okay, thank you. So the next item is approval of the minutes from September the 29th, 2020. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes? Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Deborah Neal Marisi.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Mr. Chair, just for the record, I don't think that, Jamie, it's been 3 months since you've been appointed. I think you have to have 2 meetings before you can vote.
I didn't hear that.
I think the new member, Jamie, she has to do 2 meetings before she can vote.
Oh, okay. Yes, so for the record, well, first of all, I'd like to welcome Jamie Bell to the board. Welcome, and we value you being here and your experience, your previous experience. Mr. Calderon just alerted me the fact that you are still on probation. And so you're not allowed to vote for three more meetings. Thank you. All right. Are there any requests to address the board? Hearing none. There are no consent items. Let's move on to the regular business. There is no old business. The new business is petition DB 21-28 VAR. Would staff like to read that into record, please?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to give me a second to try sharing my screen. I have a strange situation here. Screen. Let's see, I think it's this one.
And Mr. Chair, while we're working out the technical difficulties in chambers, please look over here every once in a while just to see if there's public comment. We have somebody waiting on the line for this issue when you are done with discussion.
Okay, thank you. I will ask for public comment at the appropriate time, and we will wait for the person that's waiting.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Have we read the petition into the record yet? I can't really hear what Lawrence is saying, so
I don't think it's been read.
it hasn't been read.
I'll try and speak a little louder. Okay.
Okay, thank
Are
you.
you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of the Development Review Board, good evening. My name is Lawrence Calderon with Department of Sustainable Development. This petition is a request for a variance from Chick-fil-A to reduce the side setback on a proposal to establish a canopy from 10 feet to 1 foot on the east side of the existing development. This slide shows the subject property. It's off of Archer Road, and the green line shows the location of the property. Archer Road is here, and this is the main road that leads into the Butler Plaza development. This again is the section of the parcel map that shows the actual physical layout of the property. And it's important to note that because this is one of the parts of the reasons or the basis for requesting that variance. And as you can see here, this is a close-up of the subject property. There is an existing Chick-fil-A on a little bit west on Archer Road, but on the north side. This is an older site that has been vacated by Chick-fil-A for the new site. But for this petition, they're trying to repurpose this building or this site for primarily a drive-through, and part of the request is to construct a canopy. And I'm sure the applicant will provide you with more detail as we go through. A close-up of the property will show you that this is the property line, as you can see here. And these are the arrows show the circulation pattern currently that you can come in off of here, enter the property, and there is this drive-through which splits into this 2-lane and an area to get you out here. You can circulate through here and come through there. There is a bypass lane on this side, and the primary window operates on this side here. And this leads into Archer Road. On these red lines show the proximity of the development to adjacent parking at this point and this point. And the reason for showing it is that currently the development does not comply with this requirement. So it's existing non-conforming, but with the renovation, we have asked that they establish the connectivity to the adjacent properties. And also, I believe they're planning to have these 2 lanes as drive-through lanes, which would leave it without a bypass. And with a connection either here, or one of those places, would be adequate for us to consider this a bypass, because if you enter in there and those lanes are occupied, there's no way to get out in case of an emergency. So the code requires that you have this bypass lane. And here you can see how close it is to the adjacent development. So it's easy to provide a connection, but of course they have to get authorization from the adjacent parcel. And usually what we do in such cases is that we ask the applicant that's on the review to provide the connection, and in the future, if the adjacent property did not allow it, then when they come in for modification, we ask them to make that connection. Again, you can see on the east side, you see this is the Chick-fil-A parking lot, and you can see the adjacent parking lot that closely, and that's, sorry, looking at it from the back side. And again, part of the Chick-fil-A property, you see how close it is to the subject, to the adjacent parking and driveway aisle. And eventually you get to the service window, which is, this serves as the bypass lane, and this is the pickup window where people would pick up their order and move through. And the proposal is to establish a canopy on this side. So this is the existing site, the way it works now. You could see the subject property, outline of the subject property here. And the layout is like they would come in and circulate as I showed in the previous slide. And this is the proposed modification to the site. Instead of having all of the activity here, they've created this layout to lead to these two drive-through areas and outside. Again, this is the proposed position for the canopy, which is requesting the 1 foot, as you can see right here. And it is close to the subject, to the adjacent property. And when I show some of the other slides, you will see that there are you can see some trees there. And these are approximately 3 to 4 feet from the property line. So the canopy would have a little bit of space between those trees and the adjacent property, but based on survey requirements and separation between properties, it's just about 1 foot. And here you can see this canopy if it's placed, and this was taken from the new Chick-fil-A. We did not have an elevation of what the canopy would be, so I picked up this one from the existing Chick-fil-A to give you an idea of what it may look like. I'm not saying that's what it would look like, but it may look like this. And you could please note that there is this central aisle which compares to this section here, the drive-through lane, which is to this one, on the outside lane, in this case, which is a bypass. But in the new Chick-fil-A, there is an additional driving aisle. So considering the existing property, staff has a few concerns, and this petition is actually in the development review process. But we have some concerns about the proposed development. One is the amount of trees that would be removed, as you can see here, in this case here, in this case here, and I think there's one, significant tree in the middle here, and this one over here. We felt that as part of the variance, it says that you need to comply with all of the requirements, and we felt that removal of those trees are not absolutely necessary because they exist, and I will show you what they look like. This one is the row of trees as you enter in here. And staff did not see any significant changes that's going to occur here to remove those trees because they were planted as part of the original development and they're well grown and provide necessary shading. The other one is on this side here that you can see this tree where these two lanes meet to go into the drive-through, which is right around this side here. And then the third one is right over here. At this side, you could see the island and these two parking spaces over here. The other concern staff has is that in an effort to preserve, or a proposal that the applicant may consider that would preserve those trees, this is the proposed drive-out flow, the 3 lanes. Staff has looked at the design, the proposed design and the existing one, and we felt that this layout would probably save all those trees around here and still provide the applicant with enough space to do that circulation. And I'm sure he's going to explain if or why he would not be able to do that. But we looked at one option. We're not designing this, but we're just showing that there are options for saving some of those trees that are on the edge. And the second one is over here. To save this tree, we were recommending something like this. And I realized that this is the property line, so it would not be able to go that far. This is an exaggerated situation, but we feel that a little giving on this side would be able to save this tree, and the applicant can explain further if there are any problems with these. And so as you look at the criteria for granting a variance, there are 7 criteria that special conditions are unique to the property. The special conditions that staff identified are the narrow width at this edge of the property and the unusual shape of the parcel. And if we're talking about the 1 foot, this comes into play here because of this narrow section, whereas this side is very wide. So there is reasonable, this could be a reasonable basis for consideration of a uniqueness in terms of meeting that criteria. The other criteria, as you can see here, you can see the trees that staff identified here, over here, and a very thick cluster of trees on this side, and you can see the lot width in relationship to the subject property, the adjacent property, sorry. And this is a proposed canopy. So that takes us to the second criteria, that special conditions and circumstances do not result from the action of the applicant. And clearly the width of the property is not, but the placement of this canopy is directly an action of the applicant, and unless this cannot be placed anywhere else, then it would not meet this criteria. But that's something that the board needs to take into consideration. And as you could see, this is the building is fixed, so the proposed canopy would be on this side. And I kind of, just played with this and draw the proposed canopy. It could be this way or it could be somewhere else, but this is the extent, and the footings would be here, so the setback would be measured from there, and 1 foot would be close to this. Staff feels that based on the distance or the separation between the existing building and the proposed canopy, that it's not going to have any significantly negative impact on the operation of between those 2 properties. We had some concerns about how it would impact the existing trees, but there are good tree trimming practices that can work. So if the canopy is in this case, then that's one option to extend it this way. The other option is to have the support in the center, and I am sure the applicant will explain to you if or why it cannot be done that way. So that addresses the second, that granting the variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege, and the way you typically address that is that you review the petition in terms of the merits and how it addresses the criteria. And if you stick with that procedure and basis, then you would not be granting special privilege, but you would be reviewing it based on the criteria for granting a variance. The literal enforcement of the development code would deprive the applicant, and clearly this is not the case because this has operated since, I think, 2005 or way back as a drive-through, so the ability to operate a drive-through is feasible and practical under the existing code. However, the desire of the applicant to add that canopy for operational purposes is an issue that you need to take into consideration. And the variance request is the minimum. Staff did not see this addressed directly, partly because we didn't have a layout of this, But what I did was to look at whether it is or we think it's the minimum or not. And that takes us to this slide. If you look at it and you see the 1 foot on this side over here, and that's the primary building. And if you do this type of situation instead of the other one, you can actually be without this portion. But I think the applicant will explain to you that based on operational needs, that this is something that's needed, but the supports would not be on the edge as in the previous. And this area looks like it could fit in here. This is about 2 feet, and this looks like less than 2 feet. So if they created something like this with either an overhang, you can go up to 2/3 of the way, or 36 inches without having a support, and that's one option. That would provide some kind of coverage or covering on this side. But that's an option that is open to the applicant to address. And the third one is whether granting the variance would be in harmony with the existing development surrounding neighborhoods. We do not think that granting a 1 foot variance would have a significant negative impact on the area, considering the density and intensity of development around it. We often see those very close buildings and infrastructure sitting close to each other. We do not see that as a major issue. The more problematic issues that staff has seen would be ensuring that there is a bypass lane and providing options for either connectivity now or in the future. And again, you can see how dense it is in this area, although the buildings are more widely spaced on this side and this side. But we do not believe that a 1 foot variance would have a significant negative impact on this property. I did get one call, I think it was a phone call from somebody about how close this would be and whether it would be on their property, but I was not able to get any more information than that. So with that, Mr. Chair, our recommendation is that you review this petition in the context of the criteria as listed here, and the applicant has to demonstrate that he meets the criteria for granting the variance. With that, I would be open to answer questions that you have on this petition.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Does anyone from the board have any questions of Mr. Calderon?
I'd rather wait until we're farther along, thank you.
Okay. I have a question. You mentioned the problem with the lack of a bypass. Is that a deal killer for this project?
You couldn't hear me, and it looks like I'm having the same problem.
Oh,
Could you repeat?
I said the lack of a bypass, is that a deal killer as far as staff is concerned?
Is that a what?
A deal killer. Is that a sufficient reason not to approve the petition?
The code requires that you have it, and it would be a violation of the requirements, the ordinance to do it. So that's, I think, a question for the applicant.
Yeah. Okay. So for what Mr. Calderon just said was that, in fact, they have to have a bypass in order to satisfy the code. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, we do think that the issue of the bypass, and I know that Chick-fil-A has a different mode of operation, but we do think that a connection over here on this side or over on this side or here would be adequate to serve as a bypass, so that if somebody breaks through here and there's an emergency, they can get out in one of those areas. But without having this, you would be stuck behind this. And the applicant will address it. I know they will. So,
would that require access to the neighboring property? The bypass you just mentioned. We need to have a speaker in front of us, too. I'm sorry, could you just point out where the bypass would be with your pointer again?
So currently the bypass, currently this is a one lane and this acts as a bypass under the current design. With this, there would be traffic in this lane as well as in this lane, so vehicles at the back would not be able to get out. We believe that once you get in here, that if there is a connection on this side here, leading to this aisle, over here, or over on this side, we believe that that would, and I think there is one over this side, we believe that these would serve as adequate bypass lane to allow somebody who is in that queue to be able to get out. This is not as good an option, but we would, if there is a connection there, we would consider it adequate.
Okay, I see the problem. Your cursor disappeared behind the photographs on the screen. But so, looking at the right top corner or the right bottom corner would be adequate exits for the bypass, and they're possible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question since you're talking about, Mr. Calderon, can you tell me exactly what the statute 30-5.92C is regarding the bypass? Is it to be able to leave the line at any time, or is it within a certain distance, or?
It does not list any particular distance. It just says that that you must have a bypass lane or a way to get out.
A bypass lane all the way through to the end?
Yes, a way to get out of the queue in case there's something happening.
But according to the current plans, they would not have that. Am I understanding that correctly?
This plan, the way staff sees it, it does not have a bypass lane unless they decide to not use this as a queuing space, then that would be a bypass. But our understanding is that the intent is to have vehicles stacked in here and be served.
So the intention is to have two lines going up, not just one, in which case it would not be a bypass lane.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the applicant will explain that better than I did.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Hartman.
Mr. Calderon, can you clarify what the petition for the variance is seeking, and whether, if we approve the petition, would we be approving just the canopy portion with the reduction in the setback, or would we also be approving something that has to do with the bypass lane specifically?
So the applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the setback here from 10 feet to 1 foot. The criteria for granting it, you would have to make sure that it meets that. And we think that all of those issues, one of the things is that it has to meet the standards of the Land Development Code. And if it doesn't meet that, it probably doesn't meet one or two of the standards. But in essence, what you're doing is you're deciding whether to grant a variance to reduce it from 10 feet to 1 foot. You can decide tonight that all of this is not material, or you can say it is and make a decision on this, but the essence of the matter is that the applicant is requesting a reduction from 10 feet to 1 foot.
So the application is for the reduction in the setback from 10 feet to 1 foot, and the discussion about the bypass lane is just one of the things that we take into consideration when evaluating the potential approval or denial of that reduction in setback. Is that correct?
That is correct. If you
Okay.
look at the criteria, and these are the criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions? Hearing none, let's move on to the next phase, which is the applicant's presentation, which I believe is online.
Let me stop sharing so he can do his sharing. Yes.
Okay, they're pulling. Okay, well, hopefully it'll be fine. I have the same thing that they have. Good evening. That was a great presentation by staff. I have to start off by saying that was one of the best presentations I've seen at one of these board hearings. Did a very good job of explaining what we have going on here. My name is Stuart Anderson. I am an engineer with Interplan. I'm here on behalf of Chick-fil-A to talk about our variance request. Since we just finished with a discussion about the bypass lane, I would like to mention that we tried to request a variance for that. We wanted some direction from the city, and we're told that it's a staff decision and we can't get a variance from the bypass lane from the board. But I'd still like your recommendations on whether you believe what we are doing meets the intent of the code to direct staff, as we don't want this to come up again during plan review. So if we can start, Sean, Richard, can you hear me? Can you nod your head? All right, next slide, please. Okay, just a quick vicinity map. You can see that the Chick-fil-A, there's a new one that opened up down the street, and then the proposed one is currently closed, but that's the project site that we're talking about. So it was a Chick-fil-A, but it was closed. They moved down the street, but then business was doing so well at the new store that they looked into and decided it was worth repurposing the old building to see if they could use that as a drive-through only style, no dining room seating. Next slide, please. All right, here we have a bird's eye view. You can see we're next to the Sunny's on the one side. There's a shared access drive, and then there's an existing Blaze Pizza on the other side of the Chick-fil-A. Next slide. Okay, some discussion about the site conditions. It's clear and enclosed. The new Chick-fil-A opened a few years ago. Chick-fil-A's got a chance to repurpose this building as a drive-through only location with limited curbside pickup, no dining room seating. Previously, the site utilized a double menu board and a single lane drive-through stacking. The drive-through lane stacks behind the existing parking against the building, and it was heavily congested during peak customer demand. Next slide. So here you can see where they have the two menu boards at the back corner of the building. You come in from the existing entrance across from Sunny's. You have to wrap around the building and then get in line, queue for the menu boards. The parking spaces against the building are now blocked due to that traffic. And then there's also congestion at the exit after you pick up your food from the window. There's a crisscross pattern there that's not safe. I'd also like to point out there's no existing direct connectivity to the shopping center to the east and to the south. And you'll also notice that there's parking spaces along every single one of those property lines. These are established businesses that already have parking there. So connectivity doesn't currently exist, and the neighboring properties are not really conducive to have any sort of drive access between the properties. Next slide. Okay, our proposed site upgrades. We're going to want to reconfigure the drive-through lane to be isolated from the parking, install a face-to-face canopy over 3 lanes at the menu boards. This will protect team members from the elements while allowing them to take orders directly at the car window. That was the slide that Mr. Calderon put up of the new Chick-fil-A. That was actually the order canopies. That's why there was an island in the middle. That was where the menu boards were sitting. We also want to install an order meal delivery canopy, that's what we call it, over the 2 lanes at the pickup window to also protect team members from the elements. And this will allow them to bring food directly to the cars. They no longer use the window. They actually bring the food to your car. And then we're also going to do a full remodel of the inside of the building to renovate the kitchen, so it'll increase overall efficiency and provide optimum drive-through service. Next slide. So here's the site plan again. You can see the OMD canopy up against the northeast property line, and then the face-to-face canopy is over the 3 lanes of ordering. I'd also like to point out, if Richard, Sean, can you pull up the new site plan with the landscape changes that we made? We kind of did this on the fly, but we met with the arborist on site, and we've already discussed moving the curb line on the south side over there back to where it is in the current conditions. So we plan on saving all those trees that are along the southern side there next to the Sunnies. And then we were originally going to put a stormwater pond in that green area, and that's why we had eliminated those other 2 trees. But we're going to be able to save those 2 trees to the in that area right there. And then there's also another tree that's being saved up in the corner with our configuration of our drive-through lane. So we've already talked to the arborist about addressing some of those, and she seemed fine with our new plan, even though we are eliminating a few trees. We've done the best we can to save the perimeter buffers, and especially the trees along the Sunny's property side. Go back to the presentation. So with this new design, go to the next slide, please. Oops. Now go back one. You got the floor plan in there? Did you say that camera opens up? Well, I guess I can just speak to it. As part of the remodeling, I said that the team members bring food directly to the cars out in the delivery area. The drive-through window is no longer going to be a window. We're taking the window out and actually putting in sliding doors. So team members can walk out. Oh, there it is. So we added new sliding doors at the existing window location, and there's also a traditional door being added over at the end there. So the cockpit inside has gotten larger, and they've added 2 sets of doors. So this is how the team members can get out into the drive aisles, and they bring the food directly to the cars. Yes?
Sir, would you orient me on the map what I'm looking at? I'm sorry, because all I've seen is a whole footprint of the entire lot. So I just want you to, you should have a pointer, Mr. Colburn. Are there pointers in here where you could point out?
Where that is on the site plan?
Yes, and where the new exterior, where are the drive-through lanes that we're talking about on this map?
The pink area is the OMD canopy. So that is the drive-through lane. That
Okay.
is the northeast side of the
All
building.
right, thank you. That's what I was having a problem with.
So
Thank you very much.
The new sliding door is at the existing pickup window location. Does that help? Okay. Next slide. Okay. Chick-fil-A is requesting the variance from the required 10-foot building setback to 1 foot in order to construct the OMD canopy over the existing 2 drive-through lanes. There's currently 21.5 feet of pavement between the building and the curb, and currently a 2.5-foot landscape buffer. The 6-inch column for the OMD canopy will sit on the back of the existing curb line, and it'll overhang, leaving 12 inches or 1 foot from the canopy to the property line. So it overhangs 12 inches from the columns, and that's how we got down to the 1 foot. So next slide. So this area is not changing. The curbs are going to stay right where they are. The grass and the buffer on the left side is staying exactly the same. All we want to do is put in the doors that I talked about on the building, and then cover the whole area so that when team members come outside, they're protected from the elements. They'll have fans underneath the canopy. It has shade. The intent is to protect the team members so they can spend more time in the drive-through lane. Next slide. So a little bit of discussion about our project and about Chick-fil-A. They are the leader in drive-through innovation. They've done lots of testing, and experience has shown that the face-to-face ordering at the driver windows and meal delivery directly to the cars, it drastically speeds up the drive-through wait times. That they feel they can answer questions faster than dealing with a menu board, dealing with a speaker box. By standing at the window, they can move the cars through there much quicker. And by bringing the food directly to the car, there's less reaching back and forth from the car to the window, and it's so much more efficient. The canopies allow the team members to spend more time in the drive-through lanes expediting cars. The building's existing, so we have to work around the existing building. We can't move the building to facilitate the setback, to provide the room for the setback. That's all the room we have. So we had to design the site upgrades around the existing building location. And then the neighboring property is already developed with a building that's over 15 feet from the property line. So it's not like our encroachment is going to be that close to the building. They're far enough away that there's still a pretty good separation between the canopy and the neighboring property. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this shows what I was just saying. The existing curb is going to remain. The existing yard buffer is going to remain. We've got a 1 foot setback, and then we've got 21.5 feet of pavement that is all going to stay the same. So that whole area doesn't change. It just gets restriped. The asphalt will be milled and resurfaced so it'll look clean and clear. And then we want to put the canopy over top of it. Next slide. Okay, some more discussion. This is touching on the bypass lanes. The outside lane is intended to be used as a traditional bypass lane during slow times. During most of the time, that outside lane is not going to be used. But if you've been to a Chick-fil-A, you've seen what kind of business they do, and especially through the drive-through lanes. They want to be able to use that extra lane when it's really busy, when the peak times. The canopy will protect them from the elements so they can operate more efficiently, but the intent is to only really use that outside lane during peak operating times. The rest of the time, it'll be free and clear. It also won't be used, there will not be cars in that outside lane unless there's team members directing traffic. So if there was some sort of emergency, they could direct traffic, get cars out of the way, and it can still function like a real bypass lane. Okay. The canopy width is the minimum possible to be able to cover both lanes. In order to shrink the width of the canopy and still protect both lanes, columns would be required in the middle. This would prevent it being used as an escape lane. So if we have to shrink the canopy, we need extra columns inside somewhere. Now you can't get out. Now you can't deliver to the cars upstream, and then they can get out around the cars in front of them. Next slide. Okay. So this shows what the flow of traffic. During normal times, they're only going to use the 2 lanes, and then they'll merge into 1, and then all deliveries will be used in the lane up against the building. But then during peak times, they still want to use that outside lane. So that's why we want to cover all 3 lanes at the menu boards, and then 2 lanes at the meal delivery area. Next slide. And then this is the rendering our architects came up with. This shows what the new remodel is going to look like with the outside of the building, with the upgrades, and what the canopy is going to look like with fans hanging on it, covering both lanes. So, next slide. That's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have Doug Wolf from Chick-fil-A that I noticed was on our call, and he can speak for Chick-fil-A if you have any specific questions for them.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions? Yes, Ms. Bell.
Hi, Jamie Bell. I'm technically not allowed to vote because apparently I'm on probation, but I still do have a couple of questions for you, if that's all right, Mr. Chair.
You can ask as many questions as you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, question number 1. So you just talked about the reason why you can't put the posts in the median is because it needs to be an emergency exit basically during non-peak times. You want people to be able to escape that way.
Yeah, I mean, even when it's busy but not peak, they still want to be able to deliver to the cars. They can walk back to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th car, and then those cars can pull out and get out of line. Instead of sending cars off to go park somewhere and then bringing the food to them, they'll leave them in the lane, but the cars behind can pull out. And that's how it operates at a lot of the other stores that just have a bypass lane or have the drive aisle with the parking on the window side. So they can deliver to the 3rd, 4th, 5th car, and then they can get out of line. Then when during peak times, they'll use both lanes and they'll keep both of them moving and they'll deliver to the front cars and so on.
Is that how the new one is set up, or does it have a traditional
The new one only has a single window. It doesn't have the dual OMD, the dual meal delivery system. They only had room for 1. And this is something relatively new. They've only started doing it in the past year or so. It's kind of come out of COVID. A lot of the stores are doing it with cones right now because they've shut down the dining rooms and they were not using the parking, so they were coning off 2 lanes for meal delivery. And it was working really well, so they want to try and do it as a permanent feature at some of their new reinvestment projects.
That was my next question, is if this is currently set up anywhere else and if there are any concerns for staff safety moving between the 2 lanes during peak hours.
But they're doing it on the meal order side, or on the face-to-face order side. I mean, the new one has 2 lanes of ordering with a walkway between the 2 lanes that team members walk down currently. They have walkways on both sides, one up against the sidewalk, and then they have one between the 2 lanes. And they wear yellow safety patrol badges, and they make themselves very visible. If you go to any Chick-fil-A, they're outside. They feel that that's their business model, that they can deliver food and be a lot more efficient if they're at the windows talking to you. It's better customer service. It's just an all-around better experience.
Okay, and then my next batch of questions, I think, speaks to the heart of the issue that we've been discussing with this variance, and that, you know, city staff needs you to meet the bypass requirement, which is in code. My question, and that's my primary concern, is the bypass lane because of safety reasons during those peak hours. And you said it would only not be a bypass during peak hours. How many hours a day is that? What would you consider peak hours?
Peak hours, I mean, it's probably 2 hours, 3 hours at lunch, and then another 2 or 3 at dinner. The majority of the time, if they don't need it, they're gonna just use the one order lane. It's only when cars start backing up off of the site and onto the adjacent properties that they'll open up the 3rd lane. And like I said, they're gonna be in the drive aisle in emergency situations. They can direct traffic, they can get cars out of the way and where they need to be. It's not the code is written for one drive-up window, and it's a unique situation. We have 2 lanes. I mean, we have 1 lane and we have a 2nd lane that could be considered a bypass lane, but we want to use it, but we're controlling it when we use it. We're going to be safe. Chick-fil-A will be out there. Any emergencies arise, they will be already in the parking lot, in the drive aisles, getting cars out of the way.
I understand what you're saying, that you're doing your best to minimize the use of the lane, so you do have a bypass most of the time, but I've been in other situations where I'm in a drive-through and there's no way out, and there's a definite fear of what if something happens. And I think even if staff were out there directing, I mean, if there's an active shooter situation, staff needs to run and hide. They can't stay out there to direct traffic. And so, you know, in the times that we live in, I'm very concerned about the lack of a bypass. And so that being said, staff has made a couple of recommendations with regard to potential other outlets, and I recognize that those are challenging because there's parking on both sides, there's other owners of businesses over there. I was also wondering, and this is more for Mr. Calderon, Lawrence, if you can hear me down there, do your modifications have any increased impervious space that would therefore increase your drainage or stormwater management requirements, and therefore, like, adding the exit would reduce your ability to deal with your stormwater, and or does it preclude them from meeting any green space requirements if they take out one of those strips between the parking lots?
I think the issue of the stormwater management and impervious area has been dealt with by Public Works and the city urban forester. We do not see an issue with this managing the stormwater, but we do see that there are some issues with the ability to preserve some of the existing trees and provide the connection.
Thank you. So, yeah, and I guess in conclusion of my questions is just that I would encourage Chick-fil-A and the engineering firm to find another outlet of some kind, because the lack of a bypass from a safety perspective really concerns me. And if we can't meet that aspect of the code, then we, the board, cannot issue the variance because it would lead them to not meet other items in the city code. And so that's my primary concern. The canopy itself, I'm honestly not that worried about. I recognize the space constraints that you have, the odd-shaped parcel, and that it would be overly burdensome to ask you to demolish and reconstruct a building just to meet a setback requirement like that. So the canopy doesn't concern me, but the bypass certainly does.
Now, the connectivity, I mean, we can only build up to our property line. Anything beyond our property line is outside of our control. It's not our property any longer. So you're asking us to go to our neighbors and say, we want to take away your parking spaces and build a driveway connection to your property, which they may not want anyway because they don't want Chick-fil-A's traffic on their property. So I don't feel like the connectivity is really a fair request because they're most likely going to say no. We don't want to lose our parking and we don't want your traffic coming through to our site. And we can only build up to our property line illegally. So I don't think connectivity is really possible. And I do feel that we still meet the intent of a bypass lane because there's 2 lanes there. There's a way to get out. If there's something on one lane, you can get out in another lane. And I don't see how, if it was an active shooter situation and you had a bypass lane, how is that going to make anything any different? Because the one lane is just going to go, or how are you're going to pull out and go around cars that are, they're going to want to get out of the way too. So I don't quite understand. I mean, I was thinking more of a breakdown situation, or somebody just didn't have money and didn't want to pay. The team members can help get them out. But I mean, I think it's a different situation. It's not your typical single lane menu window. And I think that Chick-fil-A would do everything to make sure that it's safe and it operates the way it needs to.
Mr. Chair, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the board have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I have some questions. Can you tell me how many different places this has been instituted, the double lane?
Excuse me, sorry.
How many different places this 2-lane has been instituted in other places for Chick-fil-A?
Right now, there's no locations that are open. It's something that they're building right now. That's why I couldn't bring any pictures of this. It is something that's coming out of what they're learning from COVID. They're doing it with cones. And there's lots of places that have cones set up in the parking lot, and they're not using the parking spaces so they can put lanes as far as they want. And so it's something they learned during COVID, that they can get more cars in and out, and it's a lot faster running 2 lanes and running the food directly out to the cars. It's either that or you park them in parking spaces and have to bring the food to them that way, and that doesn't work very well. Most people don't like that anyway.
So the other question I have is, in the other Chick-fil-A's where they're using cones, do they have the same size parking lot or is it bigger?
The other Chick-fil-A?
The others that have used a 2-lane.
They're not able to do any of this. They only have the 1 lane, and I believe they have parking up against the lane, so they can't expand out any further. So they're not using that, but I believe they're having a lot of traffic issues at that one, getting cars in and out.
Okay, so if you'll hold just 1 second. Mr. Calderon, I have a question regarding the traffic egress and ingress to this facility. By doubling the number of cars that will be coming in with 2-lane, have there been traffic studies to look at how it will impact Archer Road?
This project is too small for us we did not ask for a traffic study. I think the mobility department evaluated it primarily on the basis of the existing circulation and how one site would impact or not negatively impact. We didn't think that the volume of drive-through flow would significantly impact the traffic flow in the area. And that's why we have no issues with the 1-foot variance or the applicant doing this. The issues are that the code says that you need to have this bypass lane, and it says you need to have connectivity. This development is doing a renovation significant, and we asked them to comply with the requirements. Now, you can say that you don't think it has any bearing on the 1 foot and you can grant it, but when you look at the criteria, we think that you would be granting a variance for somebody to disregard the code, and but that's an issue you have to.
So if we do grant a variance, does that imply permission to go ahead and build without the bypass lane?
If you grant the variance, they still will be obligated to meet the bypass lane and the connection.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there anyone else from the board with questions for the applicant? So if I understand the situation correctly, we can approve this petition. Staff will not give the permit because there is no bypass lane. Is that how I read it?
Could you, my apologies, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we have several windows between us.
Yes.
If we approve this petition, what you just said, if we approve this petition, then they will not be able to build it unless they put in a bypass lane. Is that correct?
Well, I think the issue before you is, does this development meet the criteria for granting a variance?
Yeah. So according to the criteria, we really can't approve it because it does not have a bypass lane.
That's your role, is to look at these
Yeah.
criteria and see if the applicant meets or does not meet the
Okay,
requirement.
one of the criteria is it does.
If you have made that determination, then you should grant the variance. If you feel that there are deficiencies, then you can address it and place conditions. You have the ability to place conditions also.
Okay, well, I'll hold off on that then. Are there any other questions from the board? Yes, Ms. Bell.
One other question for Mr. Calderon. The engineer stated that the city staff would not allow them to request a variance from the bypass lane portion of the code. Is that correct? And if so, why can they request a variance from one portion and not the other?
The code has a specific list of standards that could be modified through a variance. This is not one of them. And if you look at the section on modification and variance, it lists and it says you can grant this for this. The bypass lane, we've discussed it as a staff and we felt that it is important in this case because if anything happens there, there would be a lot of questions of why was that vehicle not able to get out when the code says that it needs to have the bypass lane.
The requirement for the bypass lane and the connectivity, was that added to the code after this building was initially constructed?
No, let's see. I think this property was annexed into the city. So
This building was built per county requirements and was annexed into the city of Gainesville. So when it was built, it wasn't designed per City of Gainesville code.
And are the new, all city codes being applied to this project because it's a substantial renovation?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Chair, we're of course all concerned that folks be safe. And we have a code because we want to protect our citizens. It's not just because it's in the code. It's there probably for lots of proven reasons, lots of research. I'm thinking of somebody having a baby, or an ambulance needs to come, or somebody has a heart attack. I'm thinking of those kinds of things. And I don't mean this to be discussion. I think I have a question. But
Yes, this is question time, so if you have a question, then we can discuss it later on. Thank you.
so the question is, I heard the engineer say that you, of course, would have to get permission from your neighbor, and it stands to reason, everything you said, that you're, can I speak directly to him? Mr. Thompson, can I?
Yes, you
can. And I heard you say, in effect, your hands are tied because it depends on if your neighbor says yes or no. Is that correct?
Say that again, I'm struggling to hear
Your
you.
neighbor would determine whether you were able to do this additional exit. Because you could open up a space there, but your neighbor still has a curb and parking, right?
Correct.
That's what you're
They
saying.
have green area, and then, yeah, they have the curb and parking spaces, which would have to all be eliminated for
Yes.
it to be a true connection,
But it's not in your power to do that.
correct?
You have to me, what I heard was they don't want our traffic going through there, which makes perfect sense because they can't go in, it's only out. They couldn't sneak in there and get a burger or something. So, excuse me, a chicken sandwich. So I really appreciate that your hand, it seems to me you're saying, it's not that we don't want to do it really. We're not being stubborn. We don't know how to do it. And you said we can ask, but if they say no, then you can't do it. Is all of that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we can only construct on our property without the property owner's permission to do anything on their property. So, I mean, would it help if we built pavement up to our property line, and that whenever the adjacent property was redeveloped, they could provide for us an exit over on the side there?
I don't know, but it does seem to me that that might be a way to get you out of the quandary. So now I'm gonna turn to Mr. Calderon and ask you, and have there ever been situations like this before?
Oh, many times.
And so how does it work typically? I heard
process
you say
is
typically
that
they ask
we-
the other person.
We cannot make the adjacent property do anything because they're not subject to review. However, when the connection is made from the side where we have the code applies to, when the adjacent property comes in, we make them do the connection. We've been doing this throughout the city. It's part of the requirement for connectivity. The other issue is that there is a bypass lane now. And by giving the applicant the permission to close that bypass lane is a decision we've made that we were not going to do. They would have to provide the bypass lane. And there are options. I presented options for them to meet the bypass lane, which we would consider acceptable.
And one of those options was that they would go out into the other, the adjacent owner's property.
Yes.
But they could do what he and I have been talking about. They could make it look like there's an exit there, but then if you wanted to exit and there was a car parked in the other people's parking lot and there was a tree in the way, you couldn't really exit.
Typically, the way we do this is the applicant works it out with the adjacent property and they make the connection.
So typically, it's been the applicants who cooperate with each other.
Yes.
So they need to somehow convince their neighbors that it won't be so bad in some way or something. And people do that kind of thing.
It's something that happens very often.
Okay.
The two neighbors, they may not say yes. We've had situations where they say, no, we're not letting you do that. But then the next few months, they come in for development and they're subject to the same requirements. So now both of them would.
Yes.
Without these connectivity issues, you have vehicles having to go back onto Archer Road to get to the adjacent property. The connectivity is to free up that amount of traffic and provide easy movement between the properties. Within this little connection, there are probably 3 or 4 restaurants. There's the Sonny's, there's the Chick-fil-A, and there are 2 other restaurants on fronting Archer Road on the side that you can connect through there. And that circulation removes a lot of traffic that would otherwise be going in and out of Archer Road. But Mr. Chair, I want to draw you back to the issue of the variance. The request is to grant the variance for 10 foot to 1 foot. I think your role is to look at the criteria and say, does it meet it? Yes. Does it meet it? Yes. Does it meet it? That's how I would recommend that you go through this. And if you think that what staff recommended does not apply, we are okay with that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Coleman. Let's move on then. I believe that there was someone who had a citizen comment. I think it's...
Mr. Chair, procedurally, I think you should ask the applicant if he's completed with his
okay.
presentation. Then
I
open the
assume that
floor
you had
for
ended,
public.
so I need to ask you, have you ended your presentation? Is that the end of the presentation?
Is that-
Do you have anything else to say?
At the end? Yes, I don't have any more for my presentation, although I do want to make a comment that Mr. Calderon said that we were eliminating the bypass lane. We're not really eliminating, it's still there. We just want to use it when traffic starts backing up and off of our site onto the neighboring properties. We want to get cars in and out of there faster. The pavement is still there. It's the same with the pavement that's there today. The curbs are not moving. We just want to be able to use it during peak times when it's really busy. The majority of the time, they're just going to use the one single lane. But if you've seen a Chick-fil-A, they need that extra lane when they can get it. And This is an existing building, it's not a new site. We have a lot of constraints that we have to work within. The building can't move. It's as close to the property line. We can't get any more room between the property line and the building to add a third lane or even more for, so if this was a brand new store, I could understand your reservations, but I think Chick-fil-A has done a good job in designing a site that is much safer than what's there now. The parking spaces for the curbside pickup are completely separate from the drive-through lane. They can get cars in at the one entrance next to Sonny's, and then they can exit right on Archer Road. There's no crisscross pattern. Today that they have to circle around the building and then cross over each other at the exit there. So I think it's a really good site plan, and I hope you can grant our variance.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the next phase, which is citizens' comment. Are there any citizens that would like to address this? Would you please?
Mr. Chair, we do have one person. Well, do you have anybody in chambers?
Yes, we have one person online. Let's do the online one first. Thank you.
All righty. We have Mr. Carl Hoover. Mr. Hoover, you have the floor.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Hoover.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Mr. Hoover, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Hey, I own the Wendy's and the Blaze and the additional parking behind it. And I do have concerns. I mean, it's, first I thought this was all about the canopy. And, I have concerns about the canopy. Where do the footers go? How does that impact the landscaping on the side? Where does drainage go? So a lot of those concerns. But this whole blow-by lane bypass lane is very concerning. It was not addressed at all in any of the original stuff that was sent out. So you're talking about taking parking, adding traffic through my lot, and they're 100% correct. I don't want their traffic. And I am concerned also with, the number of employees they have with, do they have adequate parking spaces for employees as well as their curbside pickup and delivery? All those things are concerns to me. And, I have Blaze on we're all concerned about trying to add traffic now. This is all new information. The canopy, concerned about that just from a close, and other impacts are related to it. But the whole bypass lane is a huge concern.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that all of your comments, or would you like to say anything else? Okay, thank you. Do we have another citizen comment?
No, Mr. Chair, that is the last citizen on the line. The floor is yours.
Okay, we have somebody in the room. Would you like to address this issue? State your name for the record, please.
Yes. My name is Don Shepard. I'm People's Representative. I'm running for mayorship. And also I wanted to state here about this entity, the Chick-fil-A, that I'm seeing by the scribes PDF that you provided, that and I had to draw the diagram of it so I could understand it. But I'm seeing where there could be some inclusion of asking the neighbor there, when I seen the picture of the right-hand side of the building there, where they had the trees and that asked the neighbor there if it could put a fence along that side there, a wooden fence or metal fence, whatever he would like, to his liking, or their liking, to taking it, cut off any debris that might go over into his property. That's what I'm thinking. And I didn't see an area where there is a garbage disposal. Another question was about the lighting. The other commissioner here had already asked about the water. And so that's out of the question. But, other question I have is about the fire exiting and entering during a term of emergency. Where is that brought into the picture of this whole diagram of conversation and diagram of the building? I'm not seeing that. I didn't know that cones were legal to use in a property of this nature. I always thought it was a pole type post, like what we have on East University, what we have on North Main Street by the post office and what is it, the little mall there, Popeyes Pizza. There's a medium there, and they have these round stick type cones that are in that nature. I could see something of that nature being in there instead of just round orange cones. I think that from what I'm seeing about the awnings being over, I think that's a perfect ideal of that, implementing that. And from what I'm seeing as far as traffic flow of the area where they have the tree on the right-hand side of the building here, this year, I myself, if I was a businessman, I'd want that removed so that the traffic or parking could be added into this area here, and the traffic could flow straight out. But this has not been determined. This is his business. What else I have here? I guess that basically is it. Entering and exiting the place safely, being a pizza place next to it. They could have like a driveway in the back that could go in back of the other business and exit as far as emergencies. And I didn't see where he had illustrated to us where the cement entrance, which he's saying that was there before, to exit and enter. I'd like to have that pointed out. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Don't see any more citizens for comments, so I'd now like to open it up for board comment. Would anybody like to start off? Mr. Harden.
So my understanding is that as we're looking at whether it meets the criteria of whether or not to grant the variance regarding the reduction in the setback. And based on, we've had two excellent presentations from Mr. Calderon and from the representative from the engineering firm for Chick-fil-A. But I'm just looking at the criteria that we're supposed to evaluate. And the first one is the special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. I do think there are some conditions and circumstances, but I don't know that that in and of itself is significant enough to meet the requirements for a variance. Number two, in particular, the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the action of the applicant, and these conditions and circumstances are directly from the actions of the applicant on whether or not to grant the reduction in the setback. And then especially number 5, the variance requested is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. I don't think that we're meeting the requirements for a variance there either, because the structure was previously used reasonably for a drive-through restaurant, and I don't think that the granting of the reduction in the setback is necessary to make the land, building, or structure usable. And so just in looking at the various criteria that we're supposed to use to evaluate this petition, I'm not seeing where it does meet these requirements for granting this reduction in the setback, particularly in that area where looking at whether it's required to make the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure.
Thank you. Any other board members like to speak to the topic?
Mr. Chair, I'm in agreement with you. I've gone through the specific requirements to grant a variance, and all of them have to be satisfied, and I see 5 out of 6 that are not satisfied, so I can go through them if you want me to elaborate more, but if you've read through the reports that were given to us, it's pretty clear that there are some pretty major problems. Part of it is the bypass. I have a problem with the bypass because it's a question of, do you need the bypass at a convenient time when you're not at your peak hour, because then it won't be available? I have a problem with that. You either have a bypass or you don't have one, so that gives me a problem. And I appreciate everything you're doing and the idea of a drive-through. There is a drive-through right up the road if you have a Chick-fil-A not far up the street, so that's 2 drive-throughs. So yeah, I think I have a hard time with this a variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members? Rick?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Bypass lane topic set aside. I agree with the other comments that my fellow board members have said about, we're tasked with, when we approve a variance, it's got to meet each of the 5 criteria or 6 criteria. And I clearly don't think that this does. And one other issue that I would mention that I'm not sure has been addressed is, number 3 does a literal enforcement of the provision, limit the use of the property. Clearly it does not, because it's been a drive-through in the past and it worked quite adequately. Then also number 5, explain how the requested variance will not confer a special privilege that's not enjoyed by other properties in the same district. I think, to me, that's another big issue. I do think this could potentially provide a special privilege to Chick-fil-A that other competitors would not have. They may want to have a larger canopy to protect their employees if they came up with this same type of model to provide food to traffic that goes through a drive-through. So I do think it sets precedent that potentially other QSRs with drive-through may want to have the same privilege. Gas stations may want to expand their canopy up to their borderline for whatever reason. Banks, others with drive-throughs. So to me, clearly this request does not meet each of these 5 criteria that we're responsible for reviewing.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Does any other board member like to comment?
I would like to say that were the pass-through lane not at issue, my guess is that we would grant this variance. And that's a comment, nothing more.
Thank you. I'll keep my comments brief. I basically agree that many of the conditions that have to all be met have not been met, and the bypass is particularly problematic. So I cannot support this motion. If someone would like to make a motion or not support the petition.
Can I request a continuance from this meeting to come back and meet with staff and discuss some of these issues that have come up tonight before we put this up to a vote?
Mr. Calderon, would you agree to a continuance? Sure. Yes, we would agree to a continuance. So
thank you.
No motion is necessary.
Mr. Chair, I would like to leave one more comment in the record. First, to say, I can't imagine a fast food company being any better than Chick-fil-A in terms of, staff training, management, all the way up, great moral valence, all that stuff. And at the same time, I can imagine that if they don't have this canopy, they could still use that pass-through lane. People could very readily come from those three chances to order on the other side, and they're expected to come and wait in one lane. I can see very easily that people would use that pass-through lane informally, and that the employees might informally provide them food, and nothing might ever happen. But if it ever did, it would really be bad. And that's just a comment.
Thank you. So no more discussion is required on this topic. It has been continued. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda.
I think you need a
Do we need
motion
to vote
for
to continue?
this petition.
Yes, you need to vote to continue it.
Can I
Okay.
make a motion for petition DB 2128 VAR to be continued to the future?
Barbara Vandermeer, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded the motion?
Barbara Vandermeer.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Thank you. 6 for, none against. So the next item on the agenda, number 7, is discussion items that followed from various communications initiated by member Neil Marisi in the last meeting, and also from me in an email. Staff has identified 3 major items that we should discuss tonight. Now, by discuss, I mean we do not need to discuss all these tonight. In fact, if we want to get out here sometime, we have to move some of these on to future meetings, and that is part of the discussion process. So let's just go through the items one by one. First of all, item number 1, meeting with the consultant presently working on the city comprehensive plan to update review topics relating to our mission.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Coleman.
just some clarification. This came from the board, not from staff. I helped you mold it, but these were primarily your ideas. Andrew Persons is on the call, and he can talk to us about some of the comp plan stuff and the consultants, and maybe address some of your concerns. So I think Brittany can probably queue him up. And do you want to do it this way, or you want to just?
These items tonight, that would be great. And yes, for the record, these were not staff's ideas. These were ideas that came from the board, from the last meeting, and also from my communication with staff. So if Mr. Pearsons could come online and address the possibility of us meeting with the consultant for the city comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is not on the agenda that I have. Does anyone else have it on their agenda? Oh, and what was on, I apologize, what was on the computer? I have 2 agendas, just kidding, I guess, sorry, I apologize, Mr.
Yeah, there was 2 agendas. There was the first agenda, and it was modified today.
The Word document?
Okay, is Mr. Pearson out?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, loud and clear.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Chair, members of the Development Review Board. I'm Andrew Persons. I'm the Interim Director of the Department of Sustainable Development. Thanks for having me tonight. If you hear my kids in the background, my apologies. But we, as you probably are aware, the city is currently sort of in the midpoint right now of an overhaul of the comprehensive plan. And I'm sure Lawrence has talked to you a little bit about the comprehensive plan. And I know Deborah's been part of or had participated in a few of our recent listening sessions with our consultant. So I guess I don't want to necessarily belabor, or go into a long sort of discussion about what a comprehensive plan is or why it's important. only to, I guess, give you an update and sort of where we are. And I think where there may be some opportunities for the board to sort of plug in to the process and share your feedback either directly to the consultant or through the sort of overall public process that we have underway. So right now, we have just completed phase 1 of the work on the new comprehensive plan, and that is essentially doing a lot of the sort of internal work with the consultant and with various departments of city staff. As you know, the comprehensive plan is a large document. It touches most aspects of city governance, but primarily it really deals a lot of what we do, what you do as a board, and how it sort of governs both the regulation of land on private property, as well as guide city decisions around public investment and programmatic investments, as well as long-term goals for the city in terms of like moving the city on. This comprehensive plan is a 10-year plan, and what's a little bit unique, not just for Gainesville, but really certainly for the state and in some with a very few other examples in the nation, is that we're rooting this comprehensive plan and basing it on the concept of trying to advance racial equity in Gainesville. We know historically large comprehensive plan processes typically leave out communities that don't regularly interact with government in a long-term planning way. Those tend to be communities of color, rental communities, lower income communities. And so one of the pillars of this comprehensive plan is really doing a deep dive and trying to get into those communities and making sure that their voices are heard and part of the discussion and part of the plan going forward. So that's I think a major tenet of this plan. Another like large change that we have, I'm sure as duly appointed board members, you have no doubt memorized the existing city comprehensive plan element by element, page for page. Assuming that you have, you've probably noticed that that our comprehensive plan is divided up into very discrete elements. We have things like the future land use element, the transportation element, the housing element, and these are largely a product of the regulatory framework that the state of Florida dictates for all comprehensive plans across the state, every jurisdiction in the state. And while there are some remaining requirements for certain parts of the plan to be present, largely, as you've probably gathered in the last decade or so of legislation up in Tallahassee, the state has largely pulled out of a lot of the sort of heavy comprehensive plan or land development sort of watchdog status as they were before. In a lot of ways, that's probably not good from a state perspective, although Gainesville has always been usually pretty good about working with the state. But it has opened up an opportunity for some local governments like Gainesville to really kind of rethink what their comprehensive plan can be and try to take that plan out of the shelves of city planners in my department, but also put that in the hands of citizens who could actually read and understand what the city's long-term vision is for development and growth, as well as actually have a seat at the table and have a stake in setting those policies. So that's a real big tenet of this plan, is to organize the plan not around sort of the state statutory requirements, but organize it around thematic elements and organize it around some of the challenges that we're trying to overcome as a community within that 10-year planning horizon. The third sort of large component of this plan is monitoring. One of the valid criticisms of our existing plan is that we have oftentimes a lot of very laudable policies and goals, but oftentimes the language itself is very vague in terms of like who's actually responsible for implementing, who's responsible for monitoring whether or not that goal is being met, and really kind of from an organizational standpoint from the city, which departments in particular are charged with being the sort of stewards of meeting some of those goals. So we have a lot of policies that talk about the city sort of, I'm doing air quotes, the city at large, making progress on housing affordability, or on transportation access, but without sort of a real feet to the fire requirements in the policy. It's easy for the city to sort of look the other way or say, oh, that's not my department, that's another department. And so that's part of what this plan is going to bring, is a lot more specificity in terms of who is actually doing the work, who's responsible for it. And then that'll be coupled with a robust sort of set of indicators or data points that the city will then use to track progress on these goals that we're setting. And we're going to track that in a very public way by publishing data on how we're doing in like a live dashboard, interactive mapping that some communities have moved to. So as a citizen, you will be able to pick up the city's comprehensive plan, which is going to be using plain language, is going to be much more accessible, and there will be essentially the first sort of part of the plan will have all the sort of big outcomes, the goals of the plan, so that a citizen can see in a very easy way, like, okay, what are the city's priorities for the next 10 years? Then they can see how well we're doing on those priorities by going to that dashboard and looking at the city's progress on those. And then we will still have all the technical policies that we as staff will use on a day-to-day basis, but those will be in an appendix as part of the plan. But we're really trying to have something that's very easily digestible by the general public, to make it a plan that is not just a planner's plan or a city organization's plan, but a community's plan. So I guess that's the sort of high level view. Where we are now, as I mentioned, we just sort of finished the phase one, which is a lot of information gathering. That was part of our listening sessions that we had with community members. And we're sort of poised at the start of the actual drafting. So we have a number of draft outcomes, which are the sort of goals, the long-term goals that have been formulated by some of the city departments. And so we're at the point now where we're going to be fleshing those out while pushing a lot of that information out to the public for comments and feedback. We have 2 places on the web where we are putting information out. There's imaginegnv.org, which is our website. And I can have Lawrence send you all this information if you don't have it otherwise after the meeting. And then we also have another website, which is actually going to facilitate live comments from citizens and neighbors who will actually be able to look at all of the drafts as they're coming out, enter comments in real time, see other citizens' comments as they're being entered on the plans. So it's going to be a very interactive process. As far as sort of how the board can get input to the consultant right now, we have a survey online that I would encourage all the members to take. We have a way you can sign up for email updates for the plan. There's a email address where you can send your free form comments. And then very soon we're going to be releasing a package that we're calling a meeting in a box, which is a digital package of a meeting that you or your neighbors or any community organization can essentially take, go through very step by step a meeting to gather input from your organization, from your neighborhood, from your church or synagogue, any of that information in a group, package it up and send it back to the city and the consultant that'll then be part of the of all the record, and it'll be used in synthesizing all of the public feedback. Another kind of unique aspect of this plan is something that we are piloting right now called community cultivators. If you've sort of heard this talked a little bit, maybe at the city commission level or at the community level, it's essentially an idea that rather than go out and sort of use maybe outside consultants for data gathering or for to solicit community feedback, what instead we're doing is we've actually are working directly with a local nonprofit community organization that has brought 10 community members who are just regular old neighbors who reside in many of the historic African American neighborhoods. And again, just reiterating that this plan, building racial equity into the plan, is a real foundational element. Having those community members and paying them actually to be part of this process. So those community members are essentially kind of embedded in the city's update of the plan. They are they're receiving sort of crash course in local government and comprehensive planning. They're the direct sort of connection with their neighbors and their community organizations and their areas. They have each of the community cultivators, or the fellows as we're calling them, have a community outreach project where they're taking essentially one aspect of the comprehensive plan and going out into the community to solicit feedback on those goals, as well as actually providing their own input as members of the Gainesville community into the drafting and review of all the plan materials that staff and the community are providing. So it's definitely a new thing for the city. It's not something that we have ever done before, but it was, again, like part of our strategy to get really deeply into communities that are just historically not part of large community planning efforts, but oftentimes are the most impacted by those decisions downstream. And so anyway, so I guess I'll stop talking, but that's a sort of real kind of high level view of the plan. I'm happy to answer any questions. And as I said, we're happy to provide any of the backup or any materials that the board would like in thinking about it or providing feedback to the consultant. So.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Yes, I think we would all appreciate everything that you have just indicated is available online. Maybe you could send an email to the whole board with links and email addresses, etc. And thank you for that exceedingly comprehensive overview of the plan. It seems like we are doing some very innovative things. Does any board members have any questions for Mr. Pearson?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that I attended 2 of the Imagine Gainesville listening sessions, and just want to congratulate the city folks for addressing what I heard as that the community cultivator and that the meetings in a box are fabulous ideas for directly responding to comments and complaints that the citizenry had about feeling outside the loop. And I really appreciate the kinds of things that Ms. Neil Morisi is thinking also, having attended those sessions. So,
thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have several comments. I have questions for Andrew. I assume you're still there, Andrew?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so the question I had was, I've gone through the website, imaginegainesville.org, and it flips you into the city's site. It is not an active site anymore, so I wanted to just alert you to the fact that what is available on the web is extremely sketchy. My hope is that you would write out what you just told us and post it in a place to where it's obvious. If not, in the city, I'm going back to the Imagine GNV.org site. I know a lot of people are ready to jump into this endeavor, and they are asking lots of questions. They want to know a sense of a timeline on when things are going to be coming out, when materials will be available. I think the sessions that you did, as the city did, were extremely effective. A lot of discussions in various venues, and people who, you know, get fired up and then they want to do something, and they're still waiting for some kind of concrete information, a sense of how long is this step, what is this step, when will this be available, who would I talk to. I'm not in any way trying to be negative. You've done an amazing job of getting off a huge project, but I just wanted to alert you to this, and I'll send you an email separately outlining this more clearly, but I wanted to bring your attention to it.
Thank you, that's very good feedback. Does any other board members have any questions or any comments? Or Mr. Pearson, would you like to comment on Ms. Maurici's comments?
I will, but I'll see if there's anyone else who has comments.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments? Nope, I don't see any. So yes, you can give your response now. Thank you.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Deborah's comments. I think that's a sentiment I think that we feel as on the staff side. My wonderful wife turned the light on. From the staff side, we came out of the listening sessions very much in the same sort of vein. We're like, wow, those are so great. Like we got, really great feedback. And we want to keep that momentum up. And I think that's where we've been talking about right now with our consultant. And I think very soon, like you'll see a lot more movement. There's a little bit, being completely frank, because we're being like very innovative and like really kind of trying to push the envelope of what a comprehensive plan can be. There's also not a real playbook for which we're going by. Like a lot of these like engagement techniques have never been used in the city before. We've never really tried something like this. So that's all to say that we feel the same sense of excitement and desire to really kind of get the ball rolling. Start to get materials out for the community to begin to provide feedback on. We have some of those, and I think they'll be out very soon. And I'll make sure that we send the email as the board chair suggested with all the information and keep you updated. I would definitely recommend if you do want to follow along. Go ahead and sign up for the Constant Contact email, and you'll get all of the materials, all the backup as they come out, and you'll be alerted to anything new that comes out. But yes, I totally hear you. We feel the same way. We're excited to get into the next phase of work and really start to bring this into life.
Do you have another comment? No? Okay, well, I think that covers that item very well. Thank you for an excellent presentation and bring us up to date with what's going on with the comprehensive plan. And we would all like to be involved, I'm sure, and get some communications about what is happening. So the next item on the agenda
Mr. Chair, I can probably just kind of give you an update on the city commission and the plan board. The plan board has, I mean, there will be an opportunity for us to meet and discuss these ideas because our rules require that we have that consultation periodically. But the plan board is immensely swamped now with the comp plan, and they've had a lot of meetings with the city commission. But down the road, as we move with our meetings and we have some more concrete ideas for us to discuss with them as to how to move forward, we would be happy to schedule those meetings. But for the next, few months, it looks like the plan board and the city commission are embedded in a lot of items. But the willingness, as the chair can attest to, that the city commission is really interested in what you're doing, and we'll be willing to make some time at the convenient moment to meet with us or to discuss with us your role and how we move forward. But you do have their support because we have a very good budget. Actually, as the advisory boards, we have a good budget for training and providing staff assistance to you. So that's another way I can mention that. And then the review process, if you want to bring up any of those, we'd be glad to address them. I know that you've given us referrals on things that came up during your review of petitions, and you asked staff to explore it, but we have not actually get down into the belly of those things, but we're addressing them as we go with different petitions. I know the Waldo Road was one that was particularly painful for you because we had a lot of sidewalk issues and across Waldo Road and the adjacent neighbors. But we have not forgotten those. We keep thinking of them as we work each petition. But, maybe the next meeting, if we have another meeting scheduled, we can focus on specific aspects that you want to talk about, and then you can give us direct referrals, and we can work on that and bring it back to you. We do have a number of petitions that's between the plan board and the city commission, discussing a lot of the ideas that you raised. So that all these things are in discussion, especially I know one member brought about the question about the change of focus of the board from reviewing development plans, and now we do primarily variances. That is in the works for discussion. I mean, the community is involved in it, the city commission, the plan board, and so the items that you bring up are worthy and meaningful. And if we could, as we move forward, we can schedule specific meetings to discuss it, or if you have specific questions or focus, I'd be happy to take them and then work on them.
Okay, thank you. So let's just review what Mr. Calderon said with respect to what started this all. This started with member Neil Marisi's comment on September the 29th, 2020. I'm going to read it verbatim for the record so that we know, so we can assess just how far along we are in addressing these points. So the comment was, there is interest in continued discussion about a joint meeting with the City Plan Board, the City Commission, and to get a presentation from the consultants on the Comprehensive Plan Update. Well, we just got an extensive overview of the Comprehensive Plan Update, so we can check that one off. Mr. Calderon just indicated that both the city and the plan board are extremely busy at the moment, and so it's not a good time to meet with them, and in any event, the meetings would have to be preceded by us developing agenda items. And so what Mr. Calderon just said is that in the past we have effectively developed agenda items from our reviews of development petitions that are making their way through the plan board and the city commission. So it seems like in an informal process that is going on now, and we don't need a formal meeting to do that. In any event, there's no time, there's no bandwidth for that. Another comment was reference to the new role of the board in reviewing variances and the need to receive training on a regular basis. Mr. Calderon said that there is funding for training, and as the need arises, for example, we've been to several meetings where new land development regulations were explained to us. She noted that the board sees fewer development review petitions, which limits public input in many of the new developments. Now that seems to be a key issue. It seems like we are seeing fewer development review petitions because we are just reviewing variances as opposed to every development that comes along. And so maybe we could address that as time goes on, maybe tonight or maybe some other time, as to what sort of developments we would like to see come in front of us. And maybe that's something that we need to get direction from the city commission for. She also commented that periodic meeting with the city plan would be helpful. Okay, we covered that point. With the city, it would be an opportunity to discuss their duties and concerns that may arise from time to time. So that's my take on this particular item. Do any other board members have any comments to put on the record concerning this topic?
Mr. Chair, I have comments. I feel like for many years the board looked at very large developments, big developments, regardless of whether they need variances or not. And the reason for that is because the board will review how it placed within where it was, how it interacted with the community it was coming into. Was it, functional for all the reasons that are in the code that we know? But also that part of the role in my mind of the board is that we offer a citizen review of how functional and how well something's going to integrate into the neighborhood for where it's going. And so in recent times, we've seen big developments coming in. Seminary Lane has been bumping into a very old established neighborhood, bringing in a big development. There are other areas in the city. And so I have to say that I feel that the Development Review Board has been diminished in our capacity to see how some of these very large, big developments interact with other parts of the city that comes into. I mean, you can start to see certain trends, and some of it's maybe avoidable and some of it's not, but I think it's critically important that Gainesville is so unique to try to weave these areas together to make more of a symbiosis when you have something new, something that's unusual. How can it help a neighborhood? How can it integrate into the neighborhood and vice versa, rather than just slamming up against each other because of the big development coming in to an established area? And there are many established areas in Gainesville that are screaming because Gainesville's growing up. It's a big city. It's really starting to develop, and it's very difficult. I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you.
We like your soapbox. Thanks very much. I would agree with your comments that, and other things that happen. For example, land development regulations keep changing, like transect zoning, where suddenly you're allowed a whole mix of different uses side by side. So you have a situation where there's some complex going in next to a residence. Now, normally there would be a buffer and there would be specific criteria to mitigate for that. And so there's a lot of things, and it's a difficult thing for me is to determine where to draw the line, what we want to see, and what can be adequately covered by staff. And I think that's the key thing. Staff does an excellent job of applying the land development regulations, but whenever we review a petition, we bring in other elements coming from the comprehensive plan that the land development regulations may not have addressed adequately, or there may be other societal factors that are more important or crucial. And so I don't have the answer. It's just the question is, I'm in general agreement that there are these large developments going in that would benefit from both us looking at them and also for citizens to come and comment on them. So that's another thing, like Seminary Lane, if that had come in front of us, then we would have had a room full of citizens who would have got their voice on the record. So I will get off my soapbox if anyone else has any comments. Okay, thank you. Well, let's put that one to bed and go on to the final topic, which Lawrence has already referenced. So the topic is the review process options for pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure improvements resulting from new developments. And the key thing, what initiated this, was the Waldo Road drive-through. And there's a number of issues that came up. First of all, the fact that Waldo Road is a major traffic artery. The fact that a drive-through would impact the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure in the area. And it's a little piece of the whole problems in that area. There's huge problems with bike ped connectivity in the Waldo Road area. So that's something that, well, this is the topic, and I see if anyone else has any comments on it. As you all know, I could probably go on for another hour or so about bicycle infrastructure and connectivity and pedestrians. So this is a particular problem that we may be able to address. So if anyone from the board would like to talk to this comment, and
Mr. Chair, my comment is, again, I think as a citizen board, we have a lot to offer in how to integrate these different parts together rather than just strictly sticking to the codified rules that govern us. If we were going to go just by the codified rules, we wouldn't need this board, because our interpretation as citizens is what we actually are offering on these items. So yes, I think that it's important to always pay attention to these anytime we get it. It would be interesting to see, and there probably is, Mr. Calder, an overview of the basic concepts of what needs to be in place for, because we are becoming into an intermodal type of transportation. So you've got bikes, scooters, hoverboards, pedestrians, cars, the whole 9 yards. And so is there an umbrella description of these and what they need? This is very forward, of course, because it's not codified, but is there a thought process in the city on starting to recognize the importance of these different forms of transportation every time something goes in?
Yeah, the city is aware of those things, and one of the ways that they have kind of marshaled to address it is that we now have a transportation mobility department, and they deal primarily with transportation and issues like pedestrian, sidewalks, bike lanes, a plan for where roads would be within the comprehensive plan as part of, that's one of the elements of the plan. So yes, the city is aware of those things and very conscious of multimodal transportation, and that's something that we push a lot. Currently, the city commission has has formed a committee to look at pedestrian safety and lighting throughout the city, and I am actually on that. Our department is on that committee, and so we are looking at a lot of the issues that you brought up in terms of trying to identify critical areas in the city where we would focus on addressing pedestrian safety and how to separate or control the various modes of transportation, such as bus and vehicles and bicycle and pedestrians. So yes, the city is aware of that, and we have taken action to do it. The Transportation Mobility Department is part of the technical review committee that reviews all of those plans. So input from that department is very frequently incorporated in the development review process.
Thank you. Another thing that's going on is this year the bicycle master plan is being rewritten. Apparently there was a consultant working on it, and I would appreciate if staff could let us know who the consultant is that's working on the bicycle master plan, and what the timeline is on that. Because in addition to what Deborah just said, as far as new technology goes, I think a crucial new technology happening right now is the advent of e-bikes. I just bought my wife an e-bike, and suddenly her biking range is much larger than mine. That's going to fundamentally change the way that bikes are viewed. And Gainesville is already a bicycle-friendly city, and what it does is effectively increase everybody's range for biking, which means we have to have a much larger network. In other words, through the whole MTPO area, and we have funds to do it, and things are moving on. There's a lot of projects going on. It's very exciting. I personally have had frustrations at times in working out who I should be speaking to for a particular type of bicycle facility. And I won't mention any names. There were some key people who are excellent. We are hiring new people in the Department of Mobility. So there's a lot of good stuff going on. But what we are missing, I think, is one person to overlook the bicycle aspect, the bicycle element of our transportation system that can go between different departments, and the different departments are obviously the Department of Mobility, Public Works. Every now and then they have bicycle infrastructure, nature parks. There's a whole GIU. There's a whole bunch of different facilities, and then you start getting into the county, because obviously there's no boundary between the city and county as far as a cyclist is concerned. You're riding a bike to the park somewhere. Oh, that's a county park. Right? It doesn't matter. I want to ride there from home. So my personal goal is to be able to ride from my home to every nature park in the MTPO area safely. And I also would like any 10-year-old girl on a bicycle to be able to do the same thing. So that's just my one comment about integrating all this. It's an excellent way to look at it. We need integration.
Well, Mr. Chair, this is exactly what Andrew was talking about a while ago in the comp plan, is that if you look at our comp plan now, it has those, exalted goals, objectives, and policies. But who is responsible? And part of this new comprehensive plan is going to be focusing on that aspect of it. It's like we have these goals, objectives, then there is an allocated, department or personnel and a specific program to implement those things. So yes, the city is looking at a lot of those issues and concerns, and we are focusing on it. We have one more item on the agenda before we...
Yes, I haven't forgotten about it.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Okay, the one more item on the agenda, let's see what it is. It is the election of officers. Because I'm the chair and we don't have a vice chair, I'm going to stay silent at this point and let the board members just discuss nominations and how to address this.
So you were the chair, Euretha was the vice chair, but she is no longer on the board. So technically we do not have one, but we can take care of all of this tonight.
Yes. Usually what would happen is the vice chair would become chair, and then we'd nominate a new vice chair. That's sort of the way it goes, but we don't have
generally, but it's all up to the board.
Right, sometimes. Right.
Yeah. So what you probably want to do is ask for nomination of a chair now.
Okay, we'll start off with asking for nominations for chair. Is anybody would like to nominate themselves to be chair, or somebody else?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to ask a question. How long have you been chair? Has it been two years now?
No, it's 1 year.
1 year?
1 year, yes.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. I'd like to know who is interested in being the chair. I know some of you are newer. There's a lot of guidance in the process. So I just would like to know if somebody is interested in being the chair.
Can I ask a couple questions? How long are the terms?
The chair is...
Okay. Okay.
The chair is 1 year with the option of up to the board after that 1 year. The board can do that if they want to.
Yeah, I should correct myself.
In the past, we've kind of
It's
just.
1 year at a time. Is there any term limits for being chair?
No.
No, there's no term limits.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question. This past year has been so unusual, obviously, and we've had so few meetings, and especially in person. This is obviously our first one in a year. Dr. Thompson, would you have any interest in serving for another year term?
Yeah, I would serve for another year. Unless someone else wants to.
I would just like to add that I think Mr. Thompson's done a great job as chair, and I would, I would nominate him to become, or to continue on as chair for the next term.
I'd second that.
I'll third it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes, I can't vote, so I guess I can. Unanimously then.
Okay.
Okay, then the next nomination we need is for the vice chair, and we should probably start off. Is anybody interested in being the backup and naturally segueing into chair next year?
The vice chair
At
keeps
least
the chair in
filling
check.
for me when I'm not here. Yes. So is there anybody interested, or if someone would like to nominate somebody else, it's all on the table.
I have a question for, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Jamie Bell.
So you've been on other committees, I take it.
Yes.
And have you held officer positions?
Yeah, I was formerly on the Board of Adjustment before it dissolved into this board, and I'm currently the vice chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee.
Excellent. Now, what about you, sir?
I'm on this board with the city, and then I'm on a county board for the value adjustment board, I believe, with the Alachua County.
Wonderful. And what about you?
Justice Board.
And who would like to be the vice chair?
I'd like to ask a question. BJ, would you be interested?
Thank you, I appreciate that, and there's a certain logic to that, and at the same time, no, thank you.
Okay.
I
I would, if I may, then I'd like to make a motion to nominate Mr. Hartman as vice chair.
You have a second?
I'll second that. I'll second that.
All in favor, Mr. Hartman being vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, Mr. Hartman, so we have the new officers for next year. I'll continue as chair, and Mr. Hartman will be vice chair.
Great.
So the final thing is board member comments.
And I will remain your secretary.
You will remain the secretary.
For now.
I, for one, have spoken way more than, I have no more comments left. Does anybody else have any comments? Yes, Ms. Bell.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity, Mr. Chair, to introduce myself to everyone, since this is my first meeting with all of you. Hi, I'm Jamie Bell.
Thank you.
I think as far as the sort of folks who have to be on the board, I'm the engineer. I don't know if there's any other engineers, but I'm a professional engineer. I have 8 years experience working in both the public and private sector. Went to the University of Florida, did agricultural and biological engineering there, as well as a master's in environmental engineering, but I operate more as a civil engineer on the water wastewater side. However, I worked in environmental resource permit review, a little bit of site development, a little transportation. I've kind of dabbled across the civil engineering board. And so I'm just really excited to be here with all of you and to see kind of what developments come our way. It sounds like there might have been some changes over the last few years, but I'm definitely interested to see how it continues to change and our roles continue to grow. So I just ask for a little bit of grace as I figure out what's going on. But again, it's nice to meet all of you, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for the background. We appreciate that. All right, are there any other board member comments? Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded? Oh, Brent,
Unanimous,
it's
6.
39.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
I
Thank you
have
all.
one request. If
Oh,
you would
it's not-
kindly just fold your laptop and shut it off, and there's a little bag underneath.